Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and it's time to continue our little bunch of series. We've done tanking, we've done healing, now we're moving on to the big dogs, the DPS. And we're going to start with melee and look at all the attributes and cool stuff that melee can do alongside their ranged counterparts, and how you can now probably get a greater appreciation for what to do as a DPSer. Now you've tried out healers and tanks, hopefully, or if you're following along, you'll just get some tips on doing good DPS. Anyway, I have a very extensive history of being a melee DPS, got my world first as melee, so it should be good. But what do we choose? What do we choose for our series then? Well, this is difficult. So, as we're also combining this with the leveling of all the characters for the eventual guides, that kind of ruled out the Windwalker and the Enhancement Shaman and the Frost and Unholy Death Knight, as we already have them capped. So obviously our other character at the moment is the Mage, and that has no melee spec. So that left us with a Pussycat, meow, and all sorts of other good stuff. Now, for melee, every single melee has very similar kind of attributes. They play differently, but they have similar attributes in terms of utility. And it's the utility side of stuff that I really want to open your eyes to. So we pretty much put this up to a vote in the stream. We had a lot of people there as to what to pick. Now, the choice is the Survival Hunter. Yes, indeed, the Survival Hunter. Why? Probably part trolling, because Survival Hunter is a big joke in the eyes of many WoW players. But there's potential two ways this can go as Survival Hunter. I do have the option, if I really, really hate it, to just not bother. I wouldn't obviously choose to play Survival as the primary thing on my Hunter if I had the choice right now. But having said that, as somebody who kind of yearns for job reasons more than anything to have a decent quantity of experience with all the specs in the game, kind of helps with my forming my opinions. Playing Survival is not actually that big of a deal, because I need to get that experience one way or the other in order to continue making those opinions. So despite the community effort to marginalize and crush Survival, and with good reason, by the way, it's not actually that negative for me to play it and see how we can get, how much performance we can get out of this thing. And also find out exactly where are its long-term problems, because it does have problems, some very, very obvious problems. We know things like, in order to move around a Survival Hunter, you have to harpoon the target, but your pet doesn't always follow exactly, and that means you can't actually use one of your primary abilities until your pet actually gets in range. Very, very irritating. Also, I've already noticed, we've only done a couple of levels with our Survival Hunter, but the Mongoose Bite mechanic is absolutely atrocious. And I was also surprised, after putting a few hours into it, just how busy this spec is. It's super busy in terms of the amount of stuff you're managing. A lot of people compare it to spinning plates, which you'll often see at magic shows, etc. But yeah, if you want a spec that spins a lot of plates, good God, this thing is just non-stop. And there's already a few recommendations that I could say that could seriously help this spec be much more fun. But we're going to invest more time in it before we reveal those. So I'll probably do a video on Survival and its problems at some point, after we've done some Mythic Plus with it and some raid stuff. Now, I just want to address one thing. Have you finished the healer series? The only thing I actually want to do with the healer is jump into a raid and talk about raid stuff with healing. Okay, so don't worry about that. I mean, I'm going to address those things and talk about that, because healing and raids is very, very different. So we will get to that. But while we're getting to that and finding time to actually schedule a decent raid, we did do Emerald Nightmare, but it was normal mode. Not much to heal in there, honestly, that's really worthwhile, and doesn't address the things I actually want to talk about, such as scheduling and pre-planning a healing synergy. So we will hit that target, but it's just letting you know that we're underway with the melee series now, and we're going to be doing it on the Survival Hunter. So it should be interesting, to say the least. It was kind of curious doing my first dungeon as a Survival Hunter. As a very brief overview of what I thought is, its ramp up in setting everything up is really criminal. Really quite criminal, with the amount of things that have to be done before you can start like sinking your teeth into it. If you want to compare that to something like an Arms Warrior, for example, that charges Colossus and then just goes bleh and starts spewing its damage out, yeah, you can't do that with the Survival Hunter, which really is a big letdown. Although performance overall was reasonable, I found it very strange that although I was completely and utterly single target throughout most of the dungeon in terms of playstyle, and very rarely even had to press the cleave ability. It's called Carve on the Survival Hunter, if you don't know. It's basically cleave. That you barely ever get time to press that, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You have all this sort of passive damage coming out from all these varieties of other abilities that seemingly make up for it in some weird manner. It's like you're doing it, but you're not trying to do it, which is very, 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 very strange. So, yeah, it's a curious spec to say the least. I can certainly see why, even if it did appropriate damage. A good comment we got from the viewers was, even if this thing did great damage, I wouldn't want to play it. Not because I'm dead against the idea of a melee hunter, but because the gameplay is just all over the place. And I can see where they're coming from with that, but I want to reserve judgment a little bit until the end of it. All right, guys, so that's where we are. Survival Hunter incoming. Can we change the opinions of the community? Probably not, but we'll have a go anyway. Bye-bye.